Okay, thank you everybody for joining. I think we're going to get started now. We're a couple minutes past the top of the hour, so figured we can let some additional people trickle in. Just want to start with doing some brief introductions. I'm Taylor Harmeyer. I'm implementation specialist with Fleet Cost and Care, and joining me today is Angie Hookham. We'll kind of be switching off on a couple different topics, and we'll get into the agenda here. Just kind of want to go over some high-level notes and just kind of a plan for any follow-up after this call, and just some general remote training reminders. So today we have all attendees. Feel free to type any questions that you may have into the chat, and Jane and Treary, our Director of Marketing, will kind of be keeping an eye on that chat, as well as Angie and myself. And we'll kind of leave a little bit of time at the end to kind of review through the questions and see, as well as maybe in real time, if we have anything that's applicable to some of the items that we're talking about. We'll make sure that we answer as many as we can. If just due to time restrictions, Angie, Jane, and myself, as well as any other CSMs, we will plan on following up with you if there's anything that we can't quite get to on the call today, but we want to make sure that every question and concern is answered on any topics that we have today. On that point, again, we have a specified agenda in terms of things that we're going to talk about today. And I'll get into the details of that in just a moment, but I always like to remind everybody that if there's any items that you or your organization would like to get some additional training on, we're happy to do so. Just reach out to support@fleetcostcare.com or your customer success manager, and we can get something scheduled with you to go over anything, whether it's questions, a couple hours of training, different things like that. We're happy to go over that with you. But today we're just trying to focus on some very specific topics and go through some new functionality as well. So without further ado, unless Angie, you had anything else you wanted to add, I was just going to jump into the agenda for today, and then we'll get started and go into the details of those. All right, jumping into the agenda. So I just went through the intro. Again, just if you would like to follow up and would like any follow-up remote training, we always like to urge any of our customers to do that. I think that's kind of the lifeblood of Fleet Cost and Care, is our very in-depth and thorough training processes through employees like myself, Angie, and our other implementation team. So Angie, to kick us off today, we know that COVID-19 and the coronavirus has really thrown off a lot of different processes and just the general economy. So Angie's collected a couple really good points and things to cover related to COVID-19, whether it's adjusting jobs, managing those jobs, and potential quotes that are going out, as well as some employee management tactics and best practices that we think would be helpful, just to go over so that you guys have some good tricks up your sleeve to manage some of the issues that have arisen from this effectively. After that, we will go into some coming soon and already available functionality. So depending on when you received your last update, you may have already seen some of this functionality, but we wanted to go over some of our newer functionality that we find really helpful in terms of enhancements. So some of those things that will be covered will be the e-ticket cancellation process update, that's a coming soon functionality. The unit employee schedule and the multi-select functionality that we've added, as well as the emailed invoices report and customer note functionality. And then again, as I mentioned before, a brief Q&A session based off of any questions that have kind of populated throughout the call today. And we'll kind of go through that. So Angie, unless you want to add anything to kind of the intro and agenda points, I'll just switch off the slide here. And as I guess I should mention this, we will just kind of share we'll share a recording with all attendees today if you'd like to review this and see the functionality again. Otherwise, just reach out to a Fleet Cost and Care team member to get any information that you may need. All right, Angie, you ready to get started?
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. This is Angie Hookham. So I know most of you guys on the phone, some of you I don't. First of all, I want to let you guys know we all work remotely, and we all feel you guys, and we hope you guys are all safe, and your families and your workers and everything. I know it's a very stressful time for everybody. We wanted to show you some things that you guys can do for revenues lost during this Corona pandemic, as people are saying. The one thing that we want to look at is our quotes. So when you're going into a quote and we can do some lost quote codes. So we put some in our system that you guys can look at. So if you look over at the lost quote code, we have got something for like coronavirus business loss. So I know that there's some packages that are going to be coming out. Hopefully the government will get those out so small businesses can keep track of the information that you're losing some information on, you're losing business on. So Taylor's showing you guys where it's at. It's in maintain codes, and you can create a new lost quote code there. And you always use your comments, lost comments, and in your in-house comments too. I would always just keep track of every little bit of detail. As most of you know, I'm a detailed person and I like the comments. So if you have to show this to any kind of financial institution of where you've lost your revenues that were coming in. So another question that has come up, let's say you have a job already that has been, you lost that job. So if you go into the job, you can go over to that maintain, on the maintain tab. We also have the option that we can do it for also in your in-house comments, but your job type. We also put something in here where you have COV, the COVID, like canceled. And you can put that in there, or you can put the COVID, I think there's another drop down in there, that's defer. I will say that if you're doing a job that has already been done and you have unit type setups, the default for the setups, the configurations, it's not going to change anything as long as you have your unit and people tab already set up in your estimate billing tab. So you just have to remember that you can go back in and you have to just change that job type. Any of these, between the job type, the lost quote codes, you can pull reports off of, so you can get exactly where you have lost that information at your fingertips. So you can go into the different reports. Another part that I wanted to go over is for employees, employee downtime. I know it's a time where you might be laying off some employees, or you want to keep track of that. So it might be something that's you might need in the future for reporting. So it's under that, schedule employee vacation leave. So if you picked an employee, you'd be able to set them up and also put a reason. And we put in like coronavirus business loss. So you can kind of put them out. I always hate saying you're downing your employee, but you're putting them out on leave. So I would definitely utilize this and utilize your comments for that. I know some other people have got questions on these. Please put them in the chat and we can help on an individual basis. But these are some things that we've been helping some of the customers out this last week, that these are issues that have come up and questions that we know that people are having. Taylor's pulling up the reports as you're seeing, so you can look at those, the different schedules that you can even pull off too, of who's on leave and who's not. So, but it gives you that reason. So Taylor, I will give it back to you, and then you can go into the new functionality.
Okay, great. Thank you, Angie. So yeah, we just wanted to go over some processes that we found, may be helpful just to manage some of the intense changes that have kind of happened with the impacts to a lot of the organizations we're working with. So hopefully you find those helpful, and they'll help you navigate these troubling times that we're going through. Other than that, okay. This is actually a great question, Tyler. Thanks for adding that, but that's a good one to do, just to show how to add a reason. If you go up to maintain employees, you can set up new employee down reasons right here under the maintain employees drop down. So here, similarly to how we showed the loss code codes before, the coronavirus business loss right here, that's where you can add that and it will appear on your drop downs right here. No problem, Tyler. All right. Okay, so yeah, if you have any additional questions on processes to work around with the coronavirus, just please again reach out to us. Okay, so now on a different note, we'd like to go over some of our newer functionality and coming soon functionality. So the first one that I'd like to pull up was the really what I'd like to do just to get started before I go into our new e-ticket cancellation process, which is going to be a rather large shift from what some of your dispatch teams may be used to from sending out e-tickets. Something I'd like to show since this impacts the job itself, I've just gone ahead and copied my job number, so I have my example job here. But a new piece of functionality that we have is the customer notes functionality. So if I go into, I have maintain customers ready and pulled up here. A new piece of functionality that we have within our last couple recent versions is on the maintain customers tab. We've always gotten a lot of questions and a lot of requests to say, hey, how can I add pop-ups so that my, whether it's my salespeople, my billing personnel, whatever it may be, I need to set reminders for specific customers to be able to properly manage them, so we're not forgetting to send out permits and various other issues that we see from a missed revenue standpoint as well. So if I pull up if I go to maintain customers and just pull up a general customer file, you can see I have my Taylor test customer right here. You'll notice a new tab here called notes. So the way this functionality works is you can create a pop-up message and then you can select where you'd like to display that message in. The display message in it's a multi-select functionality, so if you want it to pop up for any module where a customer is selected, you can select it in all, or you can break it down and do multi-select. So if you wanted something related to make sure we bill them for permits, like this example I have here, it may be a good idea to apply that to quotes, jobs, and invoices if you wanted that to show up. And then just to kind of show you what that looks like, I'm just going to save this right here, and then I was going to pull up that job once again, just so you can see what that pop-up looks like. Again, you can set different ones based off different phases within the business throughout the process as it goes from quote to cash. But as soon as I pull up scheduled jobs here, since I have these two pop-up messages selected for jobs, as soon as I pull up this job number that I had before, and assuming that I have Taylor test customer selected as that customer, here you can see that I have both customer notes that pop up here. So it shows make sure we bill for permits as selected here, and then make sure we have a PO before saving. I know that's a really, really big one that causes a lot of grief and heartache for the billing personnel kind of at the end. So anytime you can add kind of an additional reminder to your salespeople or to your dispatchers to go ahead and get that purchase order or that purchase order number, I know that's a really, really big help there. So just some background into why we designed it the way we did. We're always very, very careful about, while, one of our clients may really, really like to get a lot of reminders and a lot of pop-ups. Some of our other customer base, they may like to keep some of those error messages away. The analogy that I always like to use is anytime I get 50 notifications on my phone, if I'm in let's say a text group with some of my friends and I have 50 notifications, the chances of me reading all 50 of those notifications is pretty low. So we try not to inundate our users with a lot of pop-up messages. So that's why we kind of left the ball in your court so that you guys can define it based off of any problem customers or perhaps maybe it's a salesperson that you work with that that's a little forgetful on making sure that he adds a PO number for his billing personnel. Hey, that's where you can apply it at the customer level, so that if you have any problem customers or anything like that, it allows you to kind of corral those pop-up messages so that it's not across the board and it's just inundating your users with these pop-up messages that they're just going ahead and ignoring. I know a good example of that is sometimes on the Unit People tab of a job. If certifications and your schedules aren't cleaned up, I know a lot of times when I go through and train, I see dispatchers will just kind of be hitting the enter button through 15 different error messages. I know a great example is within our test system where we, it's kind of our sandbox where we play and try to break everything within our system before it comes to you. I know I usually have about 15 error messages that pop up just because I get scheduled to all sorts of different jobs through a testing process. So that was just some quick background there to show you why we've designed it the way we have, and to minimize the impact on users that may not want to see it. So again, reach out for any of this functionality, reach out to your CSM or support to get any additional questions on it. The customer notes functionality is currently available in our most recent release update. So follow up with your CSM or support and ask for that update if you'd like to get that functionality soon. Okay. So that's really the functionality is quite simple. It will appear the same way as it kind of did here. Just depends how you have that all configured. So I'll just kind of move past that there. All right, next piece that I will be getting into today is the e-ticket cancellation process. So now that I've kind of opened up a job, I figured this was a really nice way just to flow into the e-ticket cancellation process. So I will begin with kind of describing what the current process is and how it's going to be changing and where it's going to be going towards. So currently, I know a lot of our users, I'm going to go through an example here with a LEM ticket or a labor equipment materials ticket. But here you can see I have this, I have myself selected as the employee here. And you'll notice that I have 2 tickets. So everybody here is probably pretty used to the process where if you were to look up here, you would see generate LEM and delete LEM. Gone or coming soon, I should say. This should be ready within the next month or so. I don't have a concrete date or build that it's set in. We're currently just testing to make sure that we've smoothed out any bugs, but it should be available within the next month or two. So likely with your next update, that will be coming with it. Again, that kind of depends on the timeline, but I know it's just being finalized and kind of polished to make sure that it's all good to go. But what everybody was used to is generate LEM and then delete LEM. Now within our system, there's no longer going to be any functionality that allows a user to delete a ticket. I don't want everybody to worry. It's still very, very similar in terms of how it rolls over to your operators in terms of if you cancel a ticket prior to it actually arriving, prior to them actually sitting on the tablet, they still won't be able to see it. But same process as before, where if they have downloaded that ticket and you go ahead and cancel it, they'll still be able to see that it's been canceled. So a lot of that process, especially from an operator standpoint, has stayed the same. Before I kind of get into, I'll kind of jump over to the Atom side in just a moment. But the first thing I kind of wanted to cover here relates to just kind of, I feel like the first step here is how is it going to impact the dispatching teams and what's that going to look like? So here you'll notice that I have 2 tickets that have generated right here. So you can see that I have a canceled ticket right here. This was one that Angie and I just kind of worked through when we were preparing for the webinar today, but you'll notice that this is canceled, and then you're still able to generate another ticket for that date, assuming that ticket's been canceled. I know probably a big concern for everybody is hey, if I'm canceling 10 to 15 tickets, what if I have 10 tickets that I created for a job that I know that they're going to be out on all next week, and due to COVID, that job got canceled, so now I have to cancel all these tickets. isn't that going to really impact how my whole list here? And am I just going to see a bunch of canceled tickets? And is that going to make it hard to view the tickets that are actually being used? We thought about that. So here you can see that there will be a new piece of functionality and a checkbox for hide canceled tickets. So in those this is a pretty easy one where I only have one canceled ticket, not a big deal. But if you did have, 10 to 15 canceled tickets that you don't want muddying up your screen here, all the dispatcher would have to do is select hide canceled tickets, and he'll only see, he or she will only see any live tickets that are not in canceled status. So I think that's a really great piece of functionality. I know me coming from a dispatcher role prior to starting with FCC, you really like to only say, hey, what's important to me from a dispatching perspective, and what do I really need to see? I don't need to see this whole big list of canceled tickets, but as soon as you uncheck that box, you can see any tickets that might have been canceled. Okay. So while I'm on the cancellation process, and before I get into some of the other pieces of functionality from the e-tickets and things like that, just want to go over another new piece. So instead of delete lem or delete ticket that you would see, depending on what kind of tickets you're sending out to your field employees, there's a new piece of functionality here where it's set ticket status. So it allows a dispatcher to go in here and cancel tickets. You'll notice that it's grayed out for any previously canceled ticket. So I already did that. So it's not going to let you go in and change a canceled ticket once it's been canceled. But if the ticket is still live and has only been viewed or something like that, and I'll kind of get to, you may have noticed that that is a new piece of functionality as well. I'll get to that in just a moment. But here, this is how a dispatcher would go up, and he can just, they can go ahead and cancel the ticket or complete the ticket as they need to. I feel like that's pretty straightforward, but that's just a slight variation in how things are going to work. But that's where they can go ahead and cancel the ticket. Like I mentioned in the case, so as everybody probably knows, if you were with the current processes and how everything is, you can't delete a ticket once the ticket has been downloaded. So similarly to that, it will, if you cancel a ticket once that status has been downloaded, so once they've kind of hard downloaded it to their device for offline capabilities, it will at least notify them that that ticket has been canceled. Otherwise, if the ticket is canceled prior to it being downloaded, it'll just simply clear it off their board, similarly to how a deleted ticket would operate in current functionality. So hopefully that's plenty of details. I don't see any questions really coming through to this functionality. So hopefully I've explained that pretty clearly. But I think the next piece that I wanted to show everybody is just kind of flowing into how it's going to work from a operator and dispatcher relationship perspective. Here you'll notice, so with current functionality, everybody's probably used to this, and I know this has been a big request that we've gotten from a lot of our customers that, hey, I can't really tell, how can I tell if the field user has seen that ticket? So previously it was status, it would just show not started. So it would kind of just go, it would be sent out to the field user and just kind of sit in limbo, and until they really left the yard in the morning, you really couldn't tell if they had seen the ticket, and there was a lot of guessing going on that our dispatchers were having a hard time with. With the new e-ticket functionality, now it will show you each piece and match exactly what you would see from the field user perspective or the Atom user perspective. So I have actually I have my Atom device set up here. So I'm just gonna kind of drag this over if I can. Give me a sec here. So you'll notice here that it shows viewed. Just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, what viewed refers to, and I'll kind of jump over to and pull this up on my Atom device, is viewed would mean that I have shown that ticket. Everybody kind of, hopefully everybody knows from an Atom perspective that anytime an operator or a field user receives a new ticket, there will be that notification there. But as soon as they open up the LEM ticket or the operator ticket functionality, that's where it shows that it's been viewed. They've at least seen that that ticket is on their device. And that's how that's going to work in here real quick. I'm going to put that on Do Not Disturb. Coming in here, now it's been viewed. The really cool piece here is now you'll be able to tell if the operator or field user has downloaded that ticket to their device. So have they looked into it? Have they opened that ticket up? So if I select this ticket that I have here, and I guess before I kind of get into the status, this is also a new piece. So in order for an operator, maybe this is really helpful for if the operator is just taking a look at it, just to kind of take a look at what he's doing the next day. They can go in here and it'll show, okay, open and read only. So what that will do is if I open and read only, everybody knows that as soon as once you have opened up a ticket, typically that deems it as downloaded, so it makes it harder to cancel that off. But what they can do now is they can simply open the ticket up, kind of look through it, and just say, okay, here's the job site that I'm going to tomorrow. Here's some phone numbers. I can write those down if they need to, whatever your field user's process currently is. But they can actually read only, and then if I jump back out of that ticket, you'll notice that it hasn't downloaded the ticket, so it won't throw off any of those cancellation processes that can kind of cause some heartache and grief for your dispatchers from a backup standpoint. So if I go in and actually open up the ticket and open and start that ticket, this is where it's going to follow the exact same process as it had before. So if I go to the back to the LEM e-ticket, you'll notice that now it's been downloaded. So a slight variation what you're typically used to. And then something cool I can do here is if I kind of refresh the job really quick, I'm just gonna kind of go back to a previous job and go back into my job now. If I go back to that ticket, you'll notice that it updates and shows that the ticket has actually been downloaded. So some extra helpful granularity to show exactly if the ticket's been seen by the operator. So then you can say, hey, I show that you downloaded the ticket. What do you mean you can't see that ticket? I know that's a big pain point that I've heard, particularly from a lot of my customers. I know Angie would agree with me there. So just some really, really helpful pieces there. So if they haven't viewed it, it'll just show, it'll show sent will be the additional process there prior to it being viewed or downloaded. Guess Angie, nothing, I don't think I'm forgetting anything so far. I'm going to go into the e-ticket now and how it impacts file links as well. I think I've covered everything there though. Next piece I'd like to show you in kind of following through with some of the functionality that I mentioned before with, we're trying not to delete entire records out of the system. We at least want to show that something was canceled and that a ticket was sent. So probably the final piece here is just to show that those documents actually will upload into file links as well. So file links, aka the lightning bolt, as many of you may kind of know, if you go up to the lightning bolt up here, there's some additional functionality as well. So everybody is currently used to the attachments. So this is where you can see any, let's say you upload maybe the quote document or a job site lift plan, any other maybe a special customer documentation that you may include on a job, that will all be listed in attachments. So this dropdown has changed from attachments and now includes an all and an e-tickets. So any e-tickets that are canceled to a job or that are canceled on a job, you will be able to see here. And then you can actually double click into them, and what will happen with those e-tickets, and I actually have oh, no, that's not the right report I was looking for. That's not it either. Oh, it's down here. What a user can do is they can actually click and open up that canceled e-ticket, and you'll notice that our new document functionality will show that the e-ticket was canceled. It will include any information up through that point. And there's really no changes. Once a actual signature has been received from a customer, the e-ticket will not allow you to cancel that ticket. they will just have to simply go through and complete the ticket, so that, because what the assumption is once a signature has been received on site from a customer, typically what that would typically be inferred to is that likely there's going to be billable time associated with that. Of course, if it's not going to be billed to the customer for whatever reason, you can go back through and just complete it and exclude that e-ticket from being billed to that customer and going into the final billing. But nonetheless, we ask that the process still is followed, where the ticket is completed once they've gotten that first signature. But the cancellation can still happen anytime before that first signature, and that will populate right here on the e-ticket itself. Believe that functionality is pretty simple, but you'll be able to view any of those canceled tickets if you needed to with that new e-ticket viewable functionality right here. I think that's everything. Angie, anything else you'd want to add here? I think I've covered everything from an e-ticket cancellation process.
Nope, I think you hit it all on the head, Taylor. Good job.
Good, thank you. All right. So kind of continuing our flow, and it looks like we didn't have any new questions come through. Good. I'm glad I've at least explained it to the point where people aren't confused yet. So that's good. So I'm going to back out of here, and what I wanted to show next is kind of a next phase through the dispatch and getting your payroll and your billing processed. So another really cool piece of functionality is we've made some updates to the e-ticket status report. So within reports and then jobs, it's e-ticket status reports right there, so it's really easy to find. I actually have it pulled up here. Since Adam has been released, it's always been a database field that we've had to collect the GPS coordinates or the location as to anytime that they're doing a punch throughout their e-ticket process, for whether they leave the yard, arrive job, as well as down the line over here. But what we've actually done is we now include the GPS coordinates for where they did each time punch. So what that's inferred to do is, I know I've gotten a lot of questions from customers saying, hey, how can I truly validate where they did the punches to make sure that they didn't do it from their house or wherever it is, to properly manage those and make sure that they're actually accurate, instead of having to go into, say, my GPS functionality to make sure that they're actually where they say they are. Now within the e-ticket status report, a dispatcher or whoever it may be can jump in here and see, okay, when they left the yard, typically I would think that time arrived job would probably be a good one. You want to make sure that if they say that they've arrived at the job, that they are actually at the job site. So if I click here, it is hyperlinked actually to mapping functionality, and will show you exactly where that punch was done. One caveat to this, and something that users may really have to make sure that they're doing and that they've set up your hardware to do so, is make sure that any mobile device has location services activated and turned on. Otherwise, what you'll see is if location services isn't enabled for any of for the particular piece of hardware, it won't be able to feed that out and won't be able to pull those GPS coordinates. So you'll see a lot of information like this, where so for this job and this e-ticket, on 317, I have the time punches, but I don't have any GPS coordinates. So something that's really important to make sure that you go through and check. Maybe it's just do some quick testing through a couple tablets. Just make sure that you have those turned on and enabled so that those GPS coordinates can flow through properly. Again, there's not a whole lot of additional features that I need to show with this. Again, this is ready for release currently. So if it's something that you're interested in, reach out to a Fleet Cost and Care employee and we'll get that update for you so that you can start using this. Okay, moving along here. All right, I have the next one that I have is related to the unit employee schedule report. So this one's a really quick, easy one to cover. So I know probably the most commonly used display schedule that we have, that a lot of users have, is the unit/employee schedule. It has a lot of that good information in terms of the drag and drop and some additional functionality. I would ask that nobody judge me too harshly on this schedule. I know as a dispatcher, I personally promote better practices than a messy schedule than this. But what a lot of our dispatchers have asked for is is to have a multi-select functionality for schedule type as well as unit type. So what typically before we rolled out this functionality, and I believe this is actually ready for release as well. So the only piece of functionality that we've gone over today that is not currently ready for release is that e-ticket cancellation process and the e-ticket status updates. But this is actually ready to go as well. So a common scenario that I see is dispatchers wanted a multi-select functionality on the schedule. So for these side drop downs, what they were looking for is I want to see all of my mobile cranes, but they might be set up in different groupings. So if I want to see my all-terrain, my boom trucks, boom, as well as I believe I have a taxi crane down at the bottom here. And my taxi cranes, I want to list more than just one type at a time. Now they have the ability to do that. So again, if they wanted to, this will actually filter down based off the unit types you have selected. And then if you want to see, okay, I at least want to see my 30, 40, and 55-ton boom trucks, you can go ahead and do that. And it allows for better sorting functionality for your dispatchers to do their jobs more effectively. Not a whole lot of details there in terms of any additional pieces there. I just know that that was a really simple thing that we could do to make that would create a big impact for the dispatching teams throughout our customer base. So hopefully you guys find that helpful as well. And it looks like I have a question from Jenna here. Will multi-selections? Jenna, to my knowledge, it should show their primary or secondary options, similarly to how it showed before. If there is a, so what Jenna is referring to and asking about is if there was a particular unit that is, the primary unit type is, let's say, a 55-ton boom truck, it should also show, so if I update that here, if it was a 55-ton boom truck, but also shows up as a 40 or 30, those secondary options should display as well. Okay, is that, hopefully that answers your question, Jenna, but yes, those will flow through. Let me know if you see otherwise, but to my knowledge, I know that that was thought about, so. All right. So I think that's all the functionality I had to show. I'm going to pass it over to Angie here, and she is going to go over the emailed invoice report, since that's another new piece of functionality, but I believe that's ready for release currently as well.
Thanks, Taylor. So a lot of customers have been asking for, in the invoicing process of finding this report, what invoices have been emailed out. So we do have this available. So it's under your reports. If you can go up to your reports on the drop down. No, yeah, thank you. And go to the invoices, and it's towards the bottom. It's actually at the bottom. It's your emailed invoice report. So this is actually really nice to see if it was successfully emailed out. So sometimes you may not get that, you know, that back, that if the email was wrong or if the person left the company or whatever. So when Taylor when he goes on to this report, you guys will see over to that right, the second column to the right, it says my email status, if it was successful or if it was failed, and then it'll give me any error message that it was that you would get from that if it was failed. Like on that bottom one there from David Thornton, he got like a SMTP error that it requires something authentication. So this is something that people have also been asking about to make sure, especially to see if they've gone out or not. So some people have been like sending emails and they don't know for sure that they got them. So this at least gives you a little bit of more security in your company that you know that it was successfully sent. So is there any questions on that? It's pretty self-explanatory. It's just you have to go to the report. The way you have to have that also, the email, if you're emailing it out, make sure that you have it on the customer tab, that you have it, click that you can email the document. on the customers and on the main tab. And underneath the email documents over to the right, as long as that is checked for the email documents, make sure that the email is correct in there.
Actually, I actually have an additional point that I can add to that, Angie. I got a question from a customer yesterday. The way the functionality currently stands, it will only it pulls from a single database field. So what it does is, it's not, if you email an invoice for let's say multiple times, it'll only show you the most recent emailed status and emailed time. So due to storage restrictions and some performance issues, it will simply overwrite when the last time it was emailed. So it'll show you the last time that it was emailed, at least, so that you don't have, for a single invoice, you may not have 10 or 15 different emails that went out. So I received a question from one of my direct customers yesterday on that, and that was kind of my explanation. So I figured, hey, if I heard it from one person, always a good point to share. But this will just show you the last time that it was emailed and who it was emailed to. Typically, the assumption there is, usually an email, it's not, an invoice is going to be emailed to multiple different parties. Usually it's just a correction of some kind or something like that. So those were some of the assumptions that we made through this process. Again, if you have any feedback or concerns with that, reach out to a fleet cost and care employee. But hopefully you'll all find this helpful to use moving forward. So, okay. All right. So that, Angie, unless you had anything else you wanted to add, I guess now we've kind of opened it up to question and answer time. So if I pull this back up, I'll kind of just make this look a little nicer here. But we wanted to leave a good solid, 15 minutes towards the end if anybody had any additional questions. Again, if they're, preferably we'd like to keep them to some simpler answers. If you'd like any, off call, specific training on any functionality, again, we're happy to do that. But wanted to leave just some time at the end to allow anybody to ask any questions as needed. Feel free to enter those into the chat, as well as if you're in Zoom, there is a Q&A functionality that we'll be reading off of as well. So feel free to ask away, and we'll take them as they come. But it seems like any other questions that came through, we were able to answer in real time. So. And I guess I should just mention, if as we're waiting for any questions, if you want to, sit in and wait for the questions, feel free. Otherwise, now if you don't feel like you have any questions on your end, now that kind of concludes our presentation of some new functionality and some COVID-19 processes that we recommend. But I'll be hanging out on the call here for the next 15 minutes or so, going through and answering questions as they come through.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you guys taking the time today, and our team and everything, and everyone, stay safe and well, and keeping your employees safe and everything. So, we just got a question in, Taylor. Yeah.
Jackie, thank you. Appreciate that. We definitely do plan to have more webinars like this moving forward. So especially with, now that Angie and I have a little more time, since travel is restricted for us for the near future, we plan on doing a lot more webinars. We're also currently working to update some of the training videos on the website themselves. Those will, again, just be some high-level functionality, not get in too into the details on those, but at least offer some helpful tips and tricks to some of the simpler functionality within NextGen. But again, we always promote additional remote training, because that's really where a lot of value comes. But let's see. Okay. So it looks like I have a question from Scott at Borsham Crane. Thanks, Scott, for joining today. How do I get GPS coordinates to appear in the e-ticket status report? How do I get the GPS set up? So Scott, I believe I was just reviewing all my accounts yesterday, and I know that you're one of mine. So Scott, what I would say is maybe reach out to me and let's get an update scheduled for you for your system, because you may just be on an older version that doesn't quite have it. But similarly to my earlier point that I made, just make sure and review your Atom device policy, whether you're using a mobile device manager or whatever it may be. Make sure all you have to do is make sure that that location service is turned on and enabled for each of your mobile devices, and it'll be good to go from there. So feel free to add any additional notes there. But Angie, do you know specifically which version it was? I just know that we're trying to consolidate our version numbers that we're using. But
yeah, no, we'll just reach out to them and get that out note off the top of my head. But we did get a question in the chat. Is there a way that we can watch this webinar at a later date? Yes, Jane will be sending out a recording by the end of the day, Monday, for everybody to watch this. So you guys will all get a copy of it if you want to be able to watch that.
Okay.
We do have another question in the chat. Will work order e-tickets be available on Lightning Bolt similar to the job side when mechanics create and complete one? Taylor,
don't.
I'm not sure. We have to go on that one because it's the work orders.
Yeah.
So Brooke asked this question. We can follow up with you on that, Brooke. Afterwards, I'm not positive on that, so we'll have to look on that, and we'll investigate, and we'll get right back to you on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I know that at the very least, Brooke, we may be doing it in phases, where the job e-tickets were kind of phase one of that. But yeah, I think that's that's a good question, and I think that's something we're definitely considering, and will be rolled out sooner rather than later. But I think we were just going to use the jobs as kind of make sure that all works correctly, and then roll it out to work orders from there. So, but we'll follow up with you offline once we've had a little bit more time to check on timelines and things like that with our development team. I know that's not a full answer for you, but again, we'll follow up with you ASAP on that and get you an answer.
Good questions coming in. Anyone else have any questions? We've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay. Rob Foss from Sterling Crane asked one. So his question was, I would like to be added to the mailing list for future webinars. How could he do that? Jane went ahead and answered that really quickly, but I think that's still a good one to share with everybody. If you would like that, just reach out to, go to our website, and I believe, Jane, if you want to kind of interject here, you might actually know that, and I know you're a panelist, so you can speak up here.
Yeah, hi, this is Jane. If you are not already on our mailing list, you can always email me your preferred email address and I can add you to it. Or there is a place on our website where you can subscribe to our newsletter, and that will also add you to our mailing list.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Jane. I'll just, yeah, we'll continue to take questions in. We appreciate them. And don't feel like you have to wait for the last question to be answered. Just feel free to start throwing them in there, and we'll take them on a first come, first serve basis here. So.
Everybody's very quiet. It's awkward silence on the call.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless I guess no, not a big use in continuing the call. If I just wanted to leave, another minute in case somebody was typing up a question or anything like that. But I think again, please, we urge you to reach out to us if you have any follow-up items or anything that you'd like to talk specifically with us on that you may feel more comfortable talking to us one-on-one about. Yeah, I think Jane or Angie, unless you guys have any qualms with it, I think it sounds like we've answered a lot of the questions. I'm glad that I'm glad, or at least I hope that our training was really clear today, and hopefully you guys found a lot of value in it. So I'll use my go-to tagline. I'll give everybody back 8 minutes of their day, and hopefully you can use it productively. Otherwise, Angie and Jane, if you want to add anything, I think we're good to go.
Nope. Thank you, everybody. And if you'd like Taylor said, if you guys have any questions or need some additional training, we can, get that all set up for you guys. Just reach out to anyone on our team.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time.